A ditch dug by hand in 1817 made New York City richer than London, and nobody talks about it. Before the Erie Canal opened, moving goods across America was a nightmare. Shipping a ton of cargo from Buffalo to New York City by wagon cost around $100, that's roughly $500 in today's money. The route was brutal, 364 miles of mud, river rapids, and mountain passes that could take months to cross. Most goods never made the journey. Instead, they piled up in inland warehouses or got shipped the long way down to New Orleans, across the Atlantic, and back up the East Coast. It was absurdly inefficient, and it meant inland America was economically isolated. Then came the canal. Built between 1817 and 1825, the Erie Canal was 363 miles long, 40 feet wide, and dug mostly by hand, Irish and German laborers with shovels, picks, and mules. It connected the Hudson River to Lake Erie, linking New York City directly to the Great Lakes and the interior. The cost? About $7 million, an enormous sum at the time. But New York State borrowed it and built the thing anyway. And here's where it gets interesting. Within a few years, that canal paid for itself many times over. Exhibit 1, shipping costs collapsed. A ton of cargo that once cost $100 to haul from Buffalo to New York City now cost about $5. That's a 95% drop. Suddenly, moving goods inland became practical. Farmers in Ohio and Pennsylvania could afford to ship grain to eastern markets. Manufacturers in the interior could access raw materials from the Great Lakes region cheaply. The price of flour in Boston plummeted because it could now be sourced from the Midwest, instead of imported from Europe. Exhibit 2, New York City's population exploded. In 1820, New York had roughly 124,000 people. By 1860, it had over 800,000. Why? Because the canal made New York City the natural hub for all trade flowing between the interior and Europe. Goods moved through New York faster and cheaper than through any other port. This triggered a feedback loop. More trade meant more jobs meant more people meant more demand meant more trade. Exhibit 3, the canal triggered westward expansion. Before the Erie Canal, moving west meant leaving economic opportunity behind. After the canal, moving west meant access to eastern markets. Settlers flooded into Ohio, Michigan, Illinois, and beyond. They planted wheat, raised cattle, and built towns. Those towns needed supplies, nails, cloth, tools, machinery. Factories in the Northeast built those supplies. The canal created a two-way economic current. Eastern manufactured goods flowed west, Western raw materials flowed east, and money flowed in both directions. Real estate values along the canal route tripled, sometimes quintupled. Land that was worthless farmland suddenly became prime commercial property. Towns like Rochester, Syracuse, and Buffalo, tiny villages before the canal, became major industrial centers. Rochester's population grew from 500 in 1820 to over 36,000 by 1850. That wasn't random growth. It was direct economic consequence of a single infrastructure project. But here's the part that matters for understanding how prices work today. The Erie Canal created what economists call a supply chain network. Before the canal, American supply chains were fragmented. Each region was isolated. Prices reflected that isolation. After the canal, supply chains became integrated. A single network connected producers to consumers across thousands of miles. And integrated networks drive prices down. The canal also triggered competition. Before the canal, a manufacturer in Boston had a local monopoly. They could charge whatever they wanted because goods from the interior were too expensive to compete. After the canal, suddenly they faced competition from manufacturers in Ohio and Pennsylvania. Prices fell. Consumers won. This pattern, infrastructure enables competition, competition lowers prices, is the same pattern we see today with highways, railroads, ports, and the internet. The canal's impact on national GDP was staggering. Historians estimate it added between 0.4 and 1.5% to annual GDP growth in the decades following its opening. That might not sound like much, but compound that over 40 years and you're talking about a fundamentally wealthier nation. The canal didn't just move goods, it created wealth by making the entire economy more efficient. And it wasn't just about commerce. The canal transformed daily life. Prices for everyday items dropped. A working family in Boston could now afford goods that were previously luxury items. Spices, sugar, fabric, metalware, things that once required months of waiting and extreme cost became accessible. The canal didn't just move goods across space. It moved goods down the price ladder, making them available to ordinary people. So why does this matter now? Because the Erie Canal is a case study in how infrastructure shapes prices. Every time you buy something cheap, there's infrastructure behind it. A highway, a port, a railroad, a shipping container system, a warehouse network. Remove that infrastructure and prices spike. Add better infrastructure and prices fall. The Erie Canal taught America that lesson in the 1820s. We're still learning it today. The canal also created winners and losers. Wagon drivers and boatmen who relied on overland trade lost their livelihoods. Merchants who thrived on regional isolation were undercut. Some communities that depended on being trade bottlenecks lost economic importance. This is a pattern we see with every major infrastructure shift. New technology creates enormous wealth, but it redistributes it unevenly. Understanding that trade-off is crucial to understanding how modern economies actually work. The Erie Canal's success sparked a canal-building boom. Other states rushed to build their own canals. By the 1840s, there were thousands of miles of canal in America, but most of them failed. Why? Because they copied the canal's form without understanding its function. They dug canals in places that didn't connect major population centers or resource zones. They didn't create the supply chain networks that made the Erie Canal valuable. Infrastructure only works if it solves a real economic problem. Then railroads arrived. Ironically, the Erie Canal's success attracted investment into transportation infrastructure, and railroads turned out to be faster and more flexible than canals. By the 1860s, railroads were replacing canals as the backbone of American commerce. The canal that transformed America became obsolete. But here's the thing. The canal didn't disappear because it failed. It disappeared because it succeeded so completely that it created the conditions for something better. The Erie Canal teaches us something crucial about prices that most people miss. Prices aren't set by some invisible hand. They're set by infrastructure, geography, and logistics. Improve those and prices fall. Degrade them and prices rise. Every item you buy carries the fingerprint of infrastructure decisions made years or decades ago. The cheap shirt you're wearing exists because of container ships and interstate highways. The affordable coffee in your cup exists because of global port networks and supply chains. When you trace the history of any modern supply chain back far enough, you find moments like the Erie Canal, infrastructure breakthroughs that permanently lowered prices and redistributed economic power. Understanding those moments helps explain why things cost what they do today. It's not magic. It's not luck. It's the accumulated effect of hundreds of infrastructure decisions, stretching back centuries, each one changing what's possible and what's affordable. So the next time you wonder why something costs what it does, ask yourself, what infrastructure made this price possible? What would this cost without that infrastructure? The answers might surprise you. And that's exactly the kind of hidden machinery behind prices that we're always digging into here. This video is for educational and informational purposes only and is not financial advice. Always do your own research. Subscribe so you don't miss the next breakdown of the hidden supply chains and infrastructure decisions that explain why your world costs what it does. This video is for educational and informational purposes only and is not financial advice. Always do your own research.